Welcome to another episode of the Hidden Why podcast. In this special compilation episode, we're doing something different. We've gathered the most powerful moments from 5 profound conversations, all centered on one of life's most universal challenges. How do we not just survive our struggles, but use them to become stronger, more purposeful versions of ourselves? This is about the alchemy of adversity, the process of turning leaden experiences into golden wisdom. You'll hear from a clinical psychologist, a resilience powerhouse, a men's health advocate, a mindset coach, and a seasoned entrepreneur. While their stories are unique, their message is united. Let's begin by looking inward, at the very patterns that can keep us stuck. Before we can change our external world, we must understand our internal one. So much of what we do is run by subconscious programs, automatic thoughts that dictate our feelings and actions. Mindset coach Leslie Gordon Christie explains just how powerful this internal programming really is.
That little voice that talks them out of success or tells them they can't do something or tells them they're not worth it. I find that's actually a really big thing. So my first thing that I do when I start to work with someone, whether it's a group or one-on-one, is help them really quiet that voice and just kind of quiet their life so they can start to feel that actual voice coming from within, whether it's higher power, it's spirit, whatever you want to call it. It's that connection to something greater.
Okay. How do you work with a client to help them quiet that inner voice? Because we all have that inner voice, self-doubt, disbelief, all that.
Yeah. So I think, first of all, we talk about the importance of the awareness of your thoughts become things. So I like to say thoughts become feelings, feelings become actions, and actions give you results. And so a lot of it has to do with putting new messages inside your subconscious mind every single day. So I usually get my clients to listen to something every day. I'm trained from Proctor Gallagher Institute, so a lot of it is Bob Proctor training, right? And so we're listening to something every day. But once you start to give yourself new messages, then you can start to realize where the old ones were and which ones might be limiting you. So the first thing I would say to someone is, tell me where you want to go. Like, what is your goal? What is your vision? And sometimes people have a difficult time doing that, but we'll kind of get a direction anyway. And once we set the goal, then we start to move to it. All the limitations come up. This is what I like to call your paradigm or your program. It kind of just like comes out. As soon as you start to move forward, you might be frustrated with something, something might trigger you. That's your internal program. And your internal program, and we know this from, coaching with clients and working with clients, 96 to 98% of everything we do is a subconscious program. 96 to 98%. And so a lot of times it's just teaching clients that and helping them realize that when we have stories that replay in our mind, most of the time they're the same ones, they're recurring stories, and we've got to become aware of those. And then we can look at them and dismantle them and then reprogram them.
Most are negative as well.
Yeah, most of them, because we as human beings, we have a negative bias. We are naturally programmed to see the negative in everything, unless, of course, we work on that. But we also know what you focus on grows. We know that, right? What you focus on grows. It's the reason why you want to buy a new car and you start to notice everyone has that same new car. It's not everyone has the same new car. It's just you're tuned into that, your reticular activating system, bringing you proof of what you're focusing on. So if we can change that bias to be one of positivity, we can start to see different results in our lives and start to feel differently. So that's really the first step, is really the awareness piece, the education piece of how the subconscious works. And then, of course, getting a goal that you really want that's going to make doing this work worthwhile.
Okay. Couple of questions there. You said, talk about change the messaging and listening to something different. What do you mean by that? Like listening to a podcast or listening to your self-affirmations? What is that?
A couple of things. So when you come into my program, what I would have you do is, again, I'm a coach with Proctor Gallagher. So I would have you listening to a lesson every day. And that lesson is going to be something about how thoughts become things, how decision-making is important, how the focus of awareness is really big, intellectual faculties. So I would have you listening to something different from the chaos around you.
So
you're really learning about what you can do as a human being when it comes to your creative faculties and when that power flows to and through you, the creative power, we have the option to think about it how we want. And the idea is to teach you to get your thinking in line with your goals.
Yeah.
And so that's why we have to give ourselves new messages. It's kind of like when we say if we go on a diet, it's about watching the kinds of foods we're putting in our mouths, but it's really the same thing when we're going through a transformation. We've got to, watch the thoughts that we're putting in our head.
Watching what we consume mindfully. What's the science behind that? Because it is fascinating. And I do that. I've been doing it for as long as this podcast has been running longer. And rather than getting up and, what I used to do and what probably a lot of people do is turning on the news and things like that. Now I listen to a motivational podcast or something like that in the morning. And it doesn't have to be anything in particular. I just listen to it and it's more empowering than the other stuff and all the other noise around us. But what is the science behind that messaging? Is it just because it does actually change our inner thoughts?
Well, it is, if you go back to the RAS or the reticular activating system, and if you've never heard of this before, look it up, anyone who's listening, because it's really working like a GPS. I mean, it does so many other things in the brain, but it's really working like a GPS. You tell yourself what to focus on by what you're focusing on most often. So if you're getting up in the morning and you're checking your cell phone and you're reacting to emails coming in, how is that going to make you feel throughout the day? I mean, we've been there. Right? But if we can actually put some positive messages in and think about, okay, what do we want to focus on today? We're going to get a different result. And the research behind even gratitude and taking a moment in the morning and practicing gratitude, writing down 3 things, keeping a gratitude journal, whether it's in the morning or at night, so much research about the positivity that happens to your health, to your well-being, to your happiness, reducing anxiety, reducing stress. So it's all where we're putting our focus, because that focus is going to determine our results.
And what about the storms of emotion we all feel? We often treat them as weaknesses to be suppressed. But Dr. Perpetua Neo offers a revolutionary reframe that our feelings are not the problem, they are crucial data.
There's a lot we could delve into there. You talk about rationality and logic, and you're a big fan of it. I assume a lot of the people you're dealing with, clinically or other, there's a high level of emotion and feeling, which sort of is a bit separated from logic and rationality. How do you bring rationality into an emotional construct?
So the most important thing here, right, is one, emotions are data. Emotions are not truth. If you break it down, emotions go with motion, right? It moves. So most people think that if I feel something, it must be true or it must be a fact. I need to act on it. That doesn't always mean the case. So when people realize that you use emotions as data, they feel a lot safer to deal with that. And 2 is
what do you mean as far as using emotions as data? What do you mean by that exactly?
So when we say use emotions as data, it means what is this emotion telling me? Because emotions evolved as ways of signaling what is going on. So if I'm angry, it means that there's something unjust going on. If I am feeling depressed, meaning I don't feel, what happens is, as a human, we evolved depression to signal to us when to retreat in order to conserve and charge up. The thing, however, is that sometimes we take, for whatever reason in life, all these mechanisms go haywire because we go down that rabbit hole. And, the anger consumes us, the anxiety consumes us, the depression consumes us. So when I'm feeling something, or when I'm feeling a mix of things, I want to pause and ask myself, okay, what I'm feeling, where in my body, and what's this telling me? Instead of being scared of my emotions, instead of saying, I'm not an emotional person at all. As a human, emotions are signals.
Okay.
Emotions are wisdom.
Okay, I like that. So when we feel an emotion, we often become, like you said it before, we let the amygdala, the fear part of our brain, then make decisions based on that emotion, rather than sort of stopping, letting that emotion or listening to the emotion and figuring out why it's there, and then using that as data to help us move forward. And, you talk about an emotion like depression as something that's telling us to retreat. And like emotions do that. They should be able to tell us something, that what is the discrepancy or the conflict in my life right now that's causing this emotion, and then what logically can I do to avoid that in the future. But a lot of us I think, in the world right now.
Yeah.
So much overwhelm, causing anxiety and stress and anger.
Yeah.
And people aren't slowing down to really listen in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. We live in very uncertain times where, like what's been going on for many years, right? Since COVID, we've had so many rounds of almost economic crisis. And then this is artificially resuscitated. The zombie comes back alive. And then there's a little mini crisis, and then it gets resuscitated. And basically, we still don't know when the shoe is going to drop, right? But we know that prices have gone up by crazy amounts. We know that housing is very expensive. We know that our portions of food are decreasing. On a basic economic safety sustenance level, it is scary. And if we're living in such times where you're not even sure about, your future, and we know that we're living longer and longer. So our lifespans are going to be 100 this time. And do you have money to take care of you to 100 years old? Don't tell me money is not important. Don't tell me your body is not important. Don't tell me your brain is not important. The moment any of the 4 chronic disease horsemen descend upon your life, it's going to be there almost forever. So let's say, it starts at 40. So, I know people who tell me things like, oh, having gout at 30 is normal. I'm like, that's not normal. That means that if you live to 80 or 90, that's 60 years of suffering. That's 60 years of damage compounding upon itself. So you have to ask yourself then, in this, am I being yes, life is very uncertain, but is this body, is this brain? And if you are spiritually or philosophically inclined, is the spirit or soul able to keep me feeling and being a human, being connected with myself and other people, doing meaningful stuff, doing purposeful stuff until I die.
So how do we, I love what you said about the emotions and using that as data and, working up here as to what we should be doing and listening, really tuning in. And I think a lot of us are so overwhelmed, distracted, there's too much noise around us, comparison, expectations based on external realities. We don't give ourselves that space.
Yeah.
How do you help people create the space?
I think it's not just that we don't give ourselves that space. We don't know what to do with these emotions. I know how to brush my teeth, right? This is something that the psychologist Guy Winch said in a TED talk maybe 15 years ago. He said that when we cut our hands, we know what to do with a Band-Aid. But when we have a feeling, we don't know what to do with it. And I went to school, I learned so many things, right? I have 3 degrees. When I was 15, I learned 250 Chinese idioms. I know your DNA, I know the different parts of your DNA, blah, blah, blah. But did I ever know how to take care of my brain? Besides the fact that I knew some parts of my brain? No. Did I know how to read myself and other people? No. Did I know what boundaries are? No, not at all. I had to learn that the hard way. School of hard knocks, and then going to school to learn emotions as well. So how do we learn that? It's not the fact that, or it's not the fact about how we don't give ourselves the time or permission to do that. It's the world is organized and arranged in a way that stops you from doing that. Being aware of that takes the blame away. And when it takes the blame away, your battery stops leaking as well. So you can make better decisions that compound. So it's a bit like going to IKEA. Do you go to IKEA at all?
No, I try to avoid it.
Okay, so
but I know the store. Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah. So in IKEA, right, the store is a bit of a maze, and all the stuff are positioned in ways to make you go I want that.
Yeah.
And supermarkets, when you check out, there's all this amazing junk food and candy at the checkout aisles. Do you want this? Last minute deal. Have you forgotten something? All this stuff primes your brain to want to buy all the stuff. And you think it's $5, it's $3. No big deal. Oh my God, I'm going to miss out on that deal, right? So people blame themselves on why they have no control over their food and their diet. Well, if the supermarkets are arranged this way, if IKEA is arranged in this way to make you buy all the stuff you don't need, then actually think about it. The world is arranged in a way to make you not take care of your brains. So instead of imagining that you should have had the manual when you were born, no. Pause and teach yourself, what can I do if I want to make better decisions, if I want to make this pay for my future. But the problem is that human beings' brains are not wired to look into the future, right? Especially if you have an AD type of brain, so your ADD, ADHD brain. Because if I put an AD kind of person or a depressed or anxious person sometimes into an MRI scan, the part of their brain that is their present self and their future selves are not going to overlap.
Right.
So if your brain does not, if your brain literally sees your future self as somebody else, then taking the vitamins, saving the money, taking care of your head, making better decisions, delaying that impulse spending.
Managing this internal world takes energy. Dr. Neo gives us a brilliant analogy for how to conserve our most precious resource.
It sounds like that's the kind of work that you do. So I want to talk into that. And what is the process for someone who's listening that may be feeling that way? Maybe they're feeling a little bit lost, a lacking of meaning in life. Maybe they're feeling a bit depressed because there's nothing exciting in their life. Maybe they're feeling a bit overwhelmed and anxious because there's so much going on and they feel like they have to do. Where do we start in processing all this?
So the start is to first understand that everything you're going through is part of being human. Even if you don't find yourself very human. Like, one of the things that my friends always hear me say is that I think I'm half cyborg because I love logic. I love rationality. So no matter how human or how logical you are, it can feel like you're a special snowflake or this unique unicorn who has this strange, overwhelming emotions or no emotions at all. But the thing is that by the time you get out into this world, if you don't have some form of anxiety, some form of depression, or some episodes in your life when you've experienced this, then you are not human. So quite often we judge ourselves for a uniquely human experience. And if you see yourself as a battery, right? Because we all have phones and our phones all have batteries. We don't judge our phones. So if you see yourself as a battery, how do you leak? And this is the biggest epiphany for a lot of my clients. Because if you realize that judging yourself, beating yourself up all the time is causing you to leak energy, it's causing your battery to burn through fuel faster than you should. And what happens during that time isn't as simple as my battery is draining. From 80%, it's becoming 60% and 20%, and it becomes a yellow thing, right? That is not even the case. What happens is your amygdala, your fear center, is hijacking you, is hijacking your decisions. And if you don't take a plane knowing that there are hijackers on a plane, then you should not fly your brain knowing there's a hijacker. So if you let your hijacker make decisions, you are doing it from a survivalist point of view. And not only that, you are making impulsive decisions that are not wise. They're not well thought out. So what happens? You make mistakes. And most people are like, yeah, that's what people do. They make mistakes. Look at economies, right? Like, a new policy is just supposed to stack onto something else, create a bit more mess, but nobody cares because somebody's going to clean it up. But actually, you really need to live your life in your head that way. So how do we do things in a way that does not create more mess, that keeps it clean and sleek? Going back to this marble and sculpture analogy. So you have to think about, how do you take care of your brain? How are you commanding your mental energy? Because every day there are so many things that threaten to take your mental energy away. And they don't necessarily have to be all the bad things that society demonizes, like scrolling on your phone. I like scrolling on my phone. There's nothing really inherently bad about that, right? But it's about whether this behavior is in control of you. So if you're able to stop judging yourself, if you're having the self-awareness of, right, no, I like this behavior a little bit, like, I like to eat cakes, but am I going to eat 5 cakes? No. Okay. So keeping that within control is going to help you to conserve your battery better, help you to charge your battery better. And this will be the best foundations for you to navigate any kind of crisis and trauma or anything else, any kind of life episode. If you get these very unsexy foundations right, you're going to go super far and sustainably. But, people like things loud. People like things performative. Like, is not about just, like you think about how people think about, oh, I'm going to lose the weight, right? It's not about how you lose the weight. It's about how you maintain your gains over the years and over the decades. So think about that in terms of your mental fitness. How are we going to make this, one, pay, and two, how are we going to make this sustainable so that as we don't go from crap to awesome, we don't oscillate, we don't yo-yo, then we don't feel helpless and hopeless. So this will be the foundations of how I always start with every single client. Take care of the brain, conserve, command your mental energy.
Understanding the theory is one thing, living through the fire is another. Now, we'll hear from 3 individuals whose lives were profoundly tested. Their stories are raw, real, and a testament to the human spirit. Stacey Curry's journey began with a level of adversity that is almost unimaginable.
You have a story, so I want to start with your story because you've got an incredible story of resilience and success through that. And I was thinking about this the other day. We don't allow our children these days to build resilience because we wrap them in cotton wool.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. And your childhood was somewhat exceptional in that you had almost no cotton wool around you.
Yeah.
And I think that helped create your resilience. But maybe just let's start with your story. I mean, you had a fairly challenging upbringing.
Yeah, definitely. So I was removed from my mum's care when I was like 2 months old.
Yeah.
Dad got custody of me. And yeah, I grew up with Dad, who was like, I love my dad to death, but he was so dysfunctional. Like, he was like a child. He was just the funnest dad for a teenager to just have a dad that had no rules, no boundaries. Like, I could literally do whatever I wanted. But he was just, I can't even explain him. He was just, it was a really tough upbringing. I had a stepmom when I was 2. I think Dad met her, and I was petrified of that woman. She's nice to me now, but back when I was little, I was, there was no drugs, no alcohol or anything like that, but there was a lot of, stuff that went on that as a little girl, I was really petrified. And then I would go, I don't remember growing up with my mum, but I do remember visiting mum. And when I did visit her once, her partner abused me. And so I never felt safe anywhere.
Right.
I didn't stay at mum's often, but that's what happened there. And so I just kind of never felt safe anywhere.
So what about your teenage years? Like, how did you feel with living with your dad who gave you absolute freedom? Obviously, as a teenager, that would have been quite exciting and fun because you could do what you want, whereas all the other kids probably couldn't. But there must have been a bit of internal trauma or struggle there as well.
Oh, there definitely, looking back now, there would have been, but I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
But I was just living. I was just living and making, like, if I wanted to do something, I'd just do it. And I think looking back now, because I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted, like if I wanted to smoke cigarettes, I could. If I wanted to drink alcohol, I could. Like, my house was the house that, the parents would knock on the door with my friends and say, oh, is my daughter allowed to stay here the night? And my dad would say, yeah, no worries, they're just going to watch movies and all that. But what my dad had done is gone down to the bottle shop, grabbed a heap of grog, and everyone would get blind drunk. Like, it was just, that was the party house. But because I could do it, I didn't want to do it. And so, if my friends came over when I was living in the shed at 14, they'd be smoking weed out there whilst I was out working in a factory, earning money to buy clothes. Because back when I was 14, I was living in the shed, and country road jumpers were the in thing back then. And all I wanted was this country road jumper. And all of my friends had them because all of their parents had the money to buy them.
Yeah.
And so I would just, go and work in a factory putting Easter egg hampers together to earn this $70 for this jumper, whilst my friends were there smoking weed in the shed. But I wasn't interested in it. I wanted to work. I wanted to earn money. I was always a worker.
Yeah.
And I think because I didn't have parents buy me anything.
Where do you think that came from, like that work ethic and desire to work? Because I can sort of relate. I've always wanted to work. Somewhat a workaholic.
Again, looking back now that I've done a lot of work with, trauma and stuff like that, I think it was my trauma. Instead of putting into addictions and numbing my mind with drugs and
Right.
alcohol and stuff, I think my trauma was working constantly because I
So
couldn't sit still.
escapism through work.
Yeah, I think it might have been.
Yeah, that
or
makes sense.
or just having no money. That
Yeah.
I wanted
Well, that's
things.
true.
In order for me to get out of situations I've been in, I've needed money.
Yeah.
To get money, you've got to work.
Mm.
Even when I was homeless with the two kids, I had the 4-month-old and a 4-year.
Mm.
Money. And so I had to get a job.
So
by
pregnant
the
at a young
time-
age?
Pardon?
Pregnant at a young age?
Yeah, so I fell pregnant at 15.
15.
Yeah.
Tell us that story.
Oh God, I had no idea that you could. I honestly had no idea how you even got pregnant, right? So we didn't have internet, or I didn't have a mum, nothing like that. And I just said to Dad one day, he was standing in the kitchen in his jocks and he was showing me the hernia on his belly button. I said, "Shit, Dad, I got one of those too." And he said, "Go to the doctors." And so I went to the doctors and he said I was pregnant. I didn't have a hernia. So I ran home and I threw the test at Dad, and Dad went out and bought a cask of wine to celebrate my pregnancy. So again, it wasn't a big deal. It was like, oh yeah, and I had no idea. I didn't even know what to do. I didn't know to go to doctors. I didn't know, even when I was giving birth, like the lady's like, I was screaming and I'm saying, my back is so sore, and I didn't have anyone in the room with me. I was on my own. And I was crying for my dad. I'm like, I want my dad. And the lady said, right, Stacey, I think it's time the baby comes. You need to take your pants off. And I said, I'm not taking my pants off. And she said, well, we need to get the baby out. I'm like, well, where's this baby coming from? I was so naive.
Wow.
So, yeah. And so I still continued school. I walked every single day because we didn't have a car. And again, I wanted to be educated. I don't know where this drive come from. I don't know. But and even like, I really wanted a car because Dad hardly ever had a car. And if he did, he'd buy it for $150. It'd blow up. He'd have it for about 6 months, blow up, never get it registered, no roadworthy, nothing. He'd have no license. And then it'd blow up. And then we'd have a no car for the next year until he found $150 bargain again. And so I wanted a car by the time I turned 18 for my baby.
Yeah.
Because he would have been 2 by then. And so again, after school, I got a job at a cafe. I worked after school. I worked on weekends to earn money to save, because my boyfriend's dad said to me, he was a mechanic, no, a panel beater.
Yeah.
And he said, Stacey, if you save for this car, I'll help you find a really good one. He said, you need to. So I saved $1,600 for that.
Yeah.
It was just a Holden VB Commodore. But
awesome.
Yeah, I was just so driven to be a good mum. I just wanted to be a good mum. You know why? Because I didn't have a mum growing up.
Yeah.
That was my drive.
Well, I think a lot of those circumstances for you has driven you, to work more, to earn money, to get your own things, to have more security, I suppose. Because at a while there with your child, you were actually homeless as well, right?
Yeah, so I was homeless at 19 with the 2 kids. So I had the 4-month-old and a 4-year-old. So
Yeah.
I moved out at 17. I got myself a unit.
Yeah.
And with my little one, he was about
Yeah.
1 at the time, I think 1.5 or something like that. And I was pregnant at the time with my second child. So
Yeah.
I was on my own. I was going to TAFE at this stage and I was working part-time at a bakery cafe thing. And the lady that owned the unit, she's divorced from her partner. And so she said, I'm moving back in, you need to move out. And I literally had nowhere to go. I mean, I could have gone to Dad's, but I couldn't live in the shed with the 2 kids. It was a dingy old shed. It wasn't a done up one with bloody, walls and stuff like that. It was literally a shed that was just a concrete floor and aluminium and all that.
Yeah.
I couldn't go back into Dad's house because it was a 3-bedroom house. I've got, 5 brothers and sisters living in there, Dad and my stepmom. I could have lived in the lounge room, but it was just too chaos. I couldn't stand the chaos in that place. It was just always dirty. I'm over the top OCD clean.
Right.
And I ended up being homeless.
Yeah.
And just had to sleep on a friend's floor just in her lounge room floor because she lived out the back of her parents' house. So I lived on her floor with no mattress, just a blanket and pillow. But again, I'd always lived rough all of my life. So I honestly, it didn't even bother me. Like looking back now, like I think because I was so uncomfortable all the time, living in that condition, I didn't feel scared or anything. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't care.
Yeah. So you lived homeless a lot on your friends' floors, 2 kids, working. How do you manage to juggle all that? Like what goes through someone's mind at that age? Or you're just resilient and just keep going?
Again, I honestly think it was the trauma that I was just in fight, flight, it just boom. I that's all I can put it down to because I'm like, how did I not ever get an addiction to anything? Because I've got a son that's had 2 sons that have had addiction and stuff, and I'm looking at them going, how on earth did I get through that with no addictions whatsoever? But I think my addictions was working. That's why I keep thinking that. But again, I needed a job to earn money to get out of my situation that I was homeless. So is it trauma or is it because you just got to earn money?
You just got to do it.
You just got to do it. I didn't have a mum or dad I could fall back on to. I couldn't go to my dad and ask for money. He didn't have money. He lives in housing commission. I didn't have a mum. Like, I've got a mum, but I never had much to do with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could never ring any of my parents and ask for money or help out of the situations I'm in. Yes, my dad looked after the kids when I needed help. Can you just look after the kids while I either go night clubbing or, something dysfunctional? But I was going to TAFE. I had to take the kids with. When I was living on the floor, I was actually going to TAFE. So during the days, 3 days a week, they'd go into the childcare at TAFE.
Yeah.
So that helped me a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
And then childcare and before school care and after school care, I just had to juggle.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you went through, fast forward to today.
Yeah.
You're quite successful. You're a speaker. You work with companies. Tell us a bit about your life today.
Yep. So, 21, I had the 3 kids. I was in domestic violence. I had won my dream job after 7 years of knocking on this guy's door.
Yeah. Tell us about that dream job.
So that was being a funeral director. I just had an absolute dream. I saw a man being hit and killed by a car when I was little. And so that was my vision. That's all I wanted to do. And I finally made that happen by knocking on this guy's door every single 6 months for 7 years.
Yeah.
And he finally gave me a go. And I couldn't even believe it. I ended up, moving into a beautiful new house, like nothing spectacular. But back then to me, it was amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like there was a hill. When I drive the kids to school in my little dingy unit, over the hill was this really beautiful area, where there was nice houses. And I said to the kids, one day we are going to live over that hill. And because of this job, I was able to rent a house over that hill. So anyway, I'm pretty much living the dream, cannot believe that I've won my dream job. And then my son ended up at the age of 9 with mental health issues, really bad, to the point where he tried to take his life at school. And so I had to resign. And the only thing I could think of, because I couldn't work full time because I needed to be there for the son, I couldn't take time off work. I just thought I'm going to have to build a business. And so I spoke to my boyfriend. It's the guy I'm with today, been with him for 21 years. And he had a hobby. And I said, can I turn your hobby into a business? And so together we built this business. And then from that, I don't know how it was, but I was invited to be an ambassador for a foundation for teenage mums. And then from that, I was asked to do media interviews. And then from that, I was invited to do speaking. So that's how all that happened. So yes, I speak on stages to corporate corporate audiences. And I absolutely bloody love it. It's so good. Yeah, it's fun. It's a little side hustle thing that I'm really passionate about.
For entrepreneur Chantal Gerrity, the challenge manifested in her health, a wake-up call that forced a complete life change.
Yeah, okay. Hard to believe you had a weight issue. Look at you now, huh?
Thanks. So, yeah, so it was a bit difficult because, I went to the doctor and they said, look, you've got high blood pressure, high cholesterol, you're heading for diabetes and all of this. And I just went, this is ridiculous. I'm 20 years old. I don't want to go on meds. Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
I just went, my mum, unfortunately, didn't have the knowledge or insight to be able to support me with healthy decisions in that area. So I went and I studied and I got into personal training and I got into all nutrition and I went and then got into triathlons. I got into weight training and then, ended up having a personal training business for many years, which was probably my first business. Prior to that, was a school teacher. I did teach in schools. And I think I always struggled with sort of that 9 to 5, kind of being stuck in one place working.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
but I think that, waking up and doing that every single day, I think that with my brain and how I work, I need stuff that's a little bit more
Yeah, pretty
exciting.
full on. Like to keep going and doing different things. What was it when you were like your 20s there that made you, I guess I want to go into like what got you to that point where you were, feeling bad with your health, overweight, whatever it might be. And what was the motivational catalyst to help you change? Because a lot of people go through that period in life where they just don't feel their full capacity and struggle to then find the motivation to overcome that. Can you relate back to that?
Yeah, look, 100%. So when I was at school, my parents were going through like a horrible divorce and my dad was
Right.
seeing somebody else. And my mother was working, to support the family and she was very busy just trying to cope herself. So we pretty much, my sister and I, and my brother, we pretty much raised ourselves from an early age. I mean, I can say probably from around the age of about 5, I can still remember emotionally supporting myself. And then financially, even, trying to help my mom and support her sort of from about the age of about 12 or 13. So when I was at school, I was always a bit of a different kid. And, in South Africa, it's kind of conservative. Everyone's very conservative. And for me, I'm a little bit out there. So I went through sort of a couple of phases. I went through my gothic phase. I went through my dread phase. I went through my piercing phase. I went through my rock phase. I went through my rave phase. I went through every phase under the sun, just trying to work out, who I am. And where I actually fit in everything. And I was overweight at that time as well. So at school, I was kind of bullied. I was called Fatty Bum Bum. My family, not my immediate family, but like my cousins and my uncles and that, they always used to go, oh, there's Fatty Bum Bum. And I remember hating having my photo taken, absolutely hating having my photo taken. I remember being in a swimming pool once, swimming with all the cousins, and all the cousins were athletes in South Africa. They were like good hockey players and like at an elite level. And I wasn't good at anything. Like I was not at, I'm not a natural when it comes to sports or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I always shied away from it. And I even remember one time my uncle had an airplane and he's like, oh, I'll take you for a ride on the airplane. And he said, but everybody's got to get on the scales and weigh. And he said to me, I remember I must have been about 9 years old. And he was like, oh, you're actually too fat to get on the plane. Like we'll have to take turns or something. And I was like, are you kidding me? So there was a lot of that sort of like, firstly, from a character point of view, I always knew I was a bit different because I was a bit wild and sort of out there and I'd never kind of conformed. I was always, like a rebel. And at school, they always used to say though that I was a leader and I used to always lead people, but they said in the wrong way. So hopefully I've changed that now. So I remember like all of that. And I think that, as I got older, I kind of worked out that it's okay to be different. It's okay to be me.
Yeah.
And what is that? And then I couldn't kind of do a job. So it was like, I'll just make my own job, be my own business owner and run my own race.
Yeah. It's fundamental. I mean, Fatty Boom Boom, I think you said, and I smirk and laugh at that here, but I know as a teenager, when you're really developing self-identity, that's critical information that you're receiving and you actually start to associate with it. But, now looking back, like we've got a name for my brother, Tub Tub. But it's a name for all of us now, and we all joke and talk about that. But at a young age, that has massive impact. But I think it also for the right person forces you to then build up some resilience to go, actually, I'm going to fucking show these guys and do something different about it. Did you find that?
Well, look, you at the end of the day, you have to make a decision, right? It's like I
Mm.
can either go down the pathway of take that on, yes, I am, go on medication and for cholesterol, blood pressure, or and go down that pathway. Or alternatively, for me, it was like empower myself to be able to, deal and manage with my own health. And I enjoyed the knowledge and the sense of control I had over it in being able to basically create the version of me that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Will
Yeah.
tell you though that I mean, I did go completely swing the other way because I got almost addicted to the dieting and losing weight in the initial stages because I'd always been overweight and I could never wear nice clothes. And all of a sudden I could wear crop tops and little wraparound skirts, and people were noticing and saying, "Oh, you're looking so good." And my mom actually sent me to the doctor and got the doctor to ask me if I was on steroids because like I'd lost just so much weight. And I was like, steroids of all the things. But I started taking diet pills and I went down the excessive part of it. And then again, I had to relook at it and go, what's a healthy way for me to actually be able to manage this?
Right.
But I'm
Mm.
not over exercising, I'm not over dieting, but what's actually a manageable way
Yeah.
to create the new version of me?
Mm. Yeah, I can certainly relate to the story. Like I was, I wouldn't say overweight, but I probably was now. I don't know, but I was definitely not a healthy weight. Never run, never liked sports. Was just uncoordinated shit, and I identified with that. Like that's who I was. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I thought, no, I've got to do something, and I started jogging and trying, physical exercise and things like that, and started to enjoy it. Not quite to the level that you took it to, but certainly there was a massive transformation and a massive confidence build for me through that period. If you were talking to someone else, knowing what you know now about health and fitness,
Mm.
and they're sitting there struggling with their health issues in whatever capacity that might be, what advice would you give them to try and make that change to motivate them to?
I think you really have to work out how you got there. I think sort of looking back a little and going, how did I get here? But
Mm,
then cut it. Like, I think a lot of people like dwell on that where they go, how did I get here? And then they start beating themselves up. It's like, how did I get here? Well, yeah, I was making all these bad decisions, doing all these bad things, plus, a bit of depression, not knowing who I am. But then the other part of that is looking and going, what is the type of person you want to be? And then creating that, what do I need to have in order to be that person? Well,
yeah.
I've got to increase my water. I've got to, the basics. It's just the basics. It's your water. It's your sleep. It's keep moving. I mean, it's not rocket science. Uh,
Mm,
but I always say find something you enjoy doing. Like a girlfriend of mine last week was saying,
yeah, it's
she's
good advice.
down and she's very miserable and she goes to the gym about 5 times a week. But she said going to the gym is actually getting to a point now where she's miserable going to the gym. She's not looking forward to it. And the other day I said to her, well, join my gym. They've got dance classes. And she was like, frick, that'll be amazing. Like, I can't wait. I'll look forward to going to dance classes. And I'm like,
Yeah,
well, that's great. So you don't have to do 1,000 burpees. You don't have to do a spin class. You can do whatever movement is going to make you happy.
yeah,
And,
yep.
and dancing is a great one, honestly.
Mm,
Like, it's great exercise.
not for me, it's not. Yeah, it's probably good exercise. The Yeah, the changing up, like I've found that I can do something for a long period of time, 6, 12 months or whatever, but I find then I change it up and start doing a different routine, and that just keeps it fresh. But certainly the thing for me was, do something else that you actually enjoy that might be a bit more social, like playing tennis. I play tennis now,
Yeah.
pretty much weekly. And, it's a different form of exercise. And I also found, and you might be able to sort of shape us on this, but I found I was overdoing it. I was pushing myself too hard
Yeah.
to jog every day, gym every day, do everything every day. Whereas now I think, there's a nice happy balance of exercise that you can incorporate to your life.
Yeah, I mean, self-awareness is so important. And like I said, it is addictive. For me, like I really enjoy the endorphins that I get from exercise. So
Yeah.
if I don't exercise, for a period of days, I will get cranky. So I look forward to exercising because it makes me feel good about myself. But there is also then the obsession, and I just did it recently. I've got my daughter's wedding coming up, so I was like, "Yep, I'm going to train twice a day, so I can fit into that dress." And now, I've ended up hurting my back because I've got a back thing going on, and I've ended up hurting my back, and it's because I pushed it. You
Hmm.
know, so you have to be self-aware, and you've got to kind of know where that tipping point is for you. Um, but yeah, and just like you said, doing group stuff is really good. Like if you're not motivated to go do something, then join a group where you can meet people, and actually you have to meet someone there, because you'll look forward to going there because it's a community, and you're playing tennis with somebody else. You're going to let someone else down if you don't go. So it makes it easier for you to be able to do those things then.
But if you're overweight or not feeling confident with yourself, perhaps going to one of those group things might be quite uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, look, to tell you the truth, what I did, because I remember my arms, I used to have welts under my arms and between my legs from my like fat rubbing together. And for me, it was, I took up swimming. So I did swimming and I did aqua aerobics. And that's how I started to lose my initial weight. And then from aqua aerobics, I started to then feel more confident in myself, get out and then start doing group fitness.
Yeah.
Because, the water takes the weight off of you. And then aqua aerobics was amazing because when I was pregnant with my twins, I went back to doing aqua aerobics because I could exercise, pregnant with twins in the water, you supported. So aqua aerobics is something that a lot of people don't prioritize as an exercise, and yet it's a really great way to get started. Like,
yeah, wow. Yeah, I see the aqua aerobics all the time when I'm at the pool.
Yeah, it's so good. It's seriously so good.
Yeah.
So good for you.
And for endurance athlete J.D. Tremblay, the struggle was internal and invisible, a battle with mental health that proves no one is immune, no matter how strong they appear on the outside.
What's driving you? Like, what was part of your background upbringing that's really pushing you to help men in this capacity? Because it's a very, compassionate role that you're doing and much needed. Is there anything that's really grounded you into this vocation?
Yeah, I live with a lot of depression. I live with a lot of mental, I say mental problems. I think everybody live with those. I think men even more so because we don't have any organization or nobody to talk to about it. If we talk about it to sometimes, right, some significant others, like our wives, would laugh at us, or we talk to organization. I think a lot of the mental health workers are not even ready for what men have to share. And so the system in place is very difficult for men to navigate. And I talk about it very openly because I don't want these guys, or any men for that matter, to live with the pain that I suffer and not have the tools necessary to overcome these destructive habits. So to me, I do ultra events. I talk about it on podcasts. I talk about the mental health of man on in the newspaper and in interviews. I do events, and we really dive in to what is necessary for a man to overcome these mental problems, these struggles that we face as men. So
Right.
because I don't want men to suffer, or to at least have the tools to overcome these mental struggles, then that's why I do this, is because I don't want them to feel the same way that I do.
So you've personally had struggles with your mental health, depression, things like that?
Yeah, I think everybody does.
Yeah.
It's you live certain things in your life, divorce, rejections. You have to fight to make a lot of money, and you see things through your military service. You live certain things that are, I would say, somewhat outside of the ordinary to keep it kosher within the you live certain things, you experience life, and I wouldn't qualify my life as super. I mean, it is outside of the norm, but it's still a lot of struggles that are major, and then a lot of people would live something very similar, and then sometimes living the same experience is not experienced the same for another person, so they would react differently based on their experience and what they've seen. So I try my best to share about it, be open without sharing too much, but at least to know that these people are not alone. And then I go out and I help them.
Yeah.
So, how did they do it? How do we move from being defined by our struggles to being refined by them? The answer lies in a set of powerful, practical tools. The first is perhaps the most difficult, moving through what Leslie Gordon Christie calls the terror barrier.
Our past often holds us back, and we get to this point where we know what we don't want and we know what we shouldn't be doing, yet we continue to do it because our subconscious is aligned with goals that help us stay in that pattern. So setting new goals would help us break away from that pattern, right?
Absolutely. Yes. However, that's uncomfortable and that feels weird. And that's where a lot of us don't realize that that's going to feel uncomfortable. So in my world, in Procter Gallagher world, we call it the terror barrier. I mean, there's lots of different titles for it or labels for it, but you're absolutely right. Setting a new goal means a new program. And as you move out of your program, it's going to feel so uncomfortable. Your program is going to push back like frustration, stress, overwhelm. Like it feels so real, right? You know what it feels like when you're doing something new? It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But when we understand that's the process of change and the only way to the other side is to go through, you kind of get that you have to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. And in my business life, I know that because I've changed things and I go, Jesus, this just doesn't feel right. I should be doing this because I feel like if I'm not doing that, then I'm, going to somehow fail or miss out or whatever it might be. So, yeah, it is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In the big things and small things.
Yeah. And that means that you're doing something new. That means you're pushing in that rate, that growth direction.
Yeah. So really helping women with their mindset around this and setting goals. Where do we go next from here?
Once they have a goal?
Yeah.
Yeah. So once they have a goal, it's really about upgrading your program to meet that goal. I like to say grow into your goal. Okay. So I like to use this. I like to say, how would the person who has achieved your goal, it's a little bit of identity work, but it's a good exercise. How would they think? How would they act? And what would they do? Okay. So I'll sit clients down often and I'll say, okay, let's do some belief work. On one paper, I want you to write down where you're at. And on the other paper, I want you to write down your goal. Now, let's break it down to thoughts, feelings, actions, results. Okay. Because remember, what you think causes you to feel, feeling causes you to take action, and actions give you results. So if you are in the morning, you sleep in, and your alarm goes off, and you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late for work. How do you feel? You feel stressed, right? When you're a stressful person, what kind of action do you take? You take stressful actions. So you might fall, you might spill your coffee, you might get in road rage. And then, of course, the action is, okay, you get to work on time, you ought not on time, you might get into a fight with your boss. But if you take another scenario and the alarm goes off and you're like, okay, I got this, you stay calm. What actions do calm people take?
Yeah.
Right? They take calm actions. They think, okay, when you're calm, you can think clearly, okay, here's what I need to do to get on time. Maybe I'll take this route instead. And the result is you get to work on time. Maybe your boss is late, so it doesn't matter. The point is, if you have a goal, think about where you are and think about where you want to go and look at the difference between those two. How are you thinking to get that goal to where you currently are now? How would the person who has that goal be thinking? How would they be feeling? How would they be acting? And that's where you can see the knowing. Yeah, you can find out where you got to make the shifts and the changes.
So with these goals you're helping the women with, are they sort of career goals? Are they big, audacious goals? Or are they more smaller goals? Like, does it vary? Or is there a pattern?
So most of the time, the women that I work with are looking for their purpose again, right? Maybe they're in one career, they want to leave that, they want to start their own business. Sometimes it's about releasing weight, which a lot of times there's emotion behind that. And maybe it's just feeling a little bit more fulfilled and less anxious. So those are what I, on a regular basis, deal with my clients. But what I try to get out of everybody, is this C-type goal. And what I mean by that is the goal that really lights you up. And sometimes that takes a little bit of allowing and a little bit of dreaming, but we all have something inside of us that if we really ask ourselves what we want to do, it's there. Oftentimes we're afraid to even admit it, but I get them to set C-type goals. So an A goal is a goal you've done. A B goal is a goal if everything works out really well, you know you can do. So it's kind of like you've got an opportunity at a company, new company, but the same type of job. That's a B goal. A C goal might be leaving your business, leaving the corporate world and starting a business. Like you don't even know how to do it. Yeah. But the point is, if you get a C-type goal, there's skin in the game. You have a reason for wanting to do this internal work, and it's going to pull out what you need to pull out to grow into that person. So that's what I coach them towards, is like, what are we really going for here? Let's get deep. Let's really, really allow ourselves to grow. And when you start to think like that, you're more fulfilled, you're more energized, you feel like, oh my gosh, life is amazing. And it's because you're allowing yourself to follow your purpose, to follow your heart.
Yeah. And I guess you would find that purpose sort of evolves as they start to take these actions. They start to get more and more clarity on this C-type goal.
Yes, and also quieting that voice, because once you quiet that voice and you just have yourself, you can start to really understand what it is that you want. So a lot of times I'll say we have to slow down to speed up. And that's hard for some people, especially people, right? It's hard. But oh my gosh, when you start to do that, that's when you go from the hustle to the flow, because you can start to align your thinking with where you want to go. You can use the RAS, the reticular activating system. You can use gratitude to increase your vibration. And when you do that, you can go from alignment rather than force. I like to say, when you set your goal, okay, you start to use your imagination. Imagination is incredible. Visualization research is huge for what it can do. Yeah. But you start to visualize, of how that person will think, how they will act, how they will feel. And then you're going to get pops of intuition. You're going to get pops of intuition. You're going to get, this is where those great $1 million ideas come from. When you're lined up with the person you want to be, that's where these ideas come from. And then once you get that inspired idea, then you got to act on it. You got to take the action. But notice the alignment is first before the action. So a lot of times we go and we try to make it happen without thinking, okay, here's what I want. Here's what I see myself doing. Here's what I need to adjust with my program. And when we do it that way, things will flow rather than force. It doesn't mean it's all going to work out, but in theory.
Yeah. No, but I often find myself in my business life, trying to, like you said, force things to happen. And that's probably because of the overwhelm. I think, okay, I've got to do this, got to do that. I'm going to push this to try and get a goal, rather than taking the time to sit back down and go, what's the goal here? And allowing those intuition moments to come in and actually bring me the desired actions that will get me there more calmly and more stress-free.
Yeah. But we all do it because we're programmed that way, the whole world. But that's why we have to step away from that so we can get our power back. And when we do, it's basically like getting a download. And then from the download, taking the inspiration and moving.
Pushing through requires immense energy, which is why high performer J.D. Tremblay emphasizes that recovery isn't a luxury, it's a fundamental part of the process.
So what does the regular day look like for you as far as your physical routine?
I wake up sometime very late. I don't believe in waking up exactly at 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. I believe in sleep. Sleeping is one of the best advice I can give anyone. I think that we are an under-recovered. We don't have athletes that train too much and overtrain. I think we have athletes that don't recover enough. Okay. And we have people that don't recover enough. So I wake up sometime very late, and then I try to do all of the things that I have to do in the morning. And Like my meetings are only in the afternoon or at night.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go running, or I go swimming, or I go biking. There's always some form of workout that has to be in it. I read my Bible because I believe in making sure that you line yourself up with the best values possible. And for me, Christianity is a huge part of my life.
Yep.
And since I work with the Hungry Warrior Academy, it's of course going to be that I will be a coach helping others reach their peak performance. So I need to be that model. I need to model what I preach, and I also need to learn about it. So reading my Bible and making sure that there's not too many cold plunges. I don't believe in all of these routine that take way too long.
Yeah.
You just need to get your workout in, make sure that you move, make sure that you're doing whatever you need to do, and all your tasks are complete. After this, I have my meeting only in the afternoon, and that's a typical day. And then we have our retreats. And when we have our retreats, then it's more really one-on-one, and then I have the guys, because it's an academy for men, to come and learn about how to be strong, valued men. So I live with those people. These men, they learn from me, and then they follow my routine, and then it's very intense because sometimes the guys, they wake up in the middle of the night, or we go do a workout at night, and so that's where it gets a lot more intense.
Yeah.
And so this is the second part. And then the third part is very often I do events around the world. And right now I am in New Brunswick, and I'm about to swim between New Brunswick and PEI. And it's to raise funds for Brigadoon Camp, which is for chronic illness kids to go to summer camp. So sometimes we do these types of events where I show up, we raise some funds, and we help raise awareness for a good cause. So those are the three parts of my life. And in all of this, I always incorporate my family and my friends. And that's typical days for me.
But where do you find the motivation to even start? Dr. Perpetua Neo has a surprising and wonderfully human solution, the dubious life goal.
Sometimes I struggle with, but since he said that to me, I've really tried to practice it, and I've become a lot better at going, you know what, I'm going for a swim, and I'll just, when I have those days where I'm just like, I'm not going to do it, I just force myself to do it. So how do we develop that, and how do we get this person that's currently so presently focused on, consuming this, doing that, doing the things that they know that maybe they shouldn't do, but they're doing it anyway because they don't care about or are aware about their future self? How do we get that collaboration?
Your why must be big enough. So you must have this time in your life where you think, never again, never again. So I'm going to spend this time and effort to clear out the gunk, to clean the marble before I actually carve it, right? So you need to have this why, and this why cannot be something that's politically correct or something that's socially desirable if it doesn't align with who you are. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I call dubious life goals. Now, this is not a psychological term. This is a Dr. P term. And it's something that makes my clients and my friends laugh, because sometimes a dubious life goal is what gets you to actually do the work. So for instance, after COVID, I was at my last never again yo-yo stage of weight loss. So, I would lose weight, and then I would gain weight, and I'll lose weight and gain weight. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm sick of this stupid yo-yo. Never again. But telling you that I'm doing it for my health, my AD brain means, I don't believe you. I'm doing it for my future. My ADHD brain, I don't really know what the future is. So why do I do that? So a dubious life goal has to be something that is almost shallow and vapid and maybe even embarrassing to actually declare. So mine was like, yeah, I want to wear a crop top all year round. And that got me to take care of my body. And as it got me to take care of my body better, my goals changed because I can wear a crop top all year round. And I realized I like how my brain feels now. I like how my body feels now. I'm getting stronger and stronger. I'm no longer the person who can't even run for the bus without sputtering because I was born with very weak lungs. I was born with very bad immunity. In Chinese medicine, I have a very bad constitution. I'm always falling sick. But for the first time in my life, I have strength. And knowing that gives me strength. And doing that makes me want to keep doing this over and over again. So whatever you want to do, let your dubious life goal, let this why that may be a bit embarrassing, motivate you. And sometimes this why can be something as, for some of my clients, proving somebody wrong. And you don't have to worry about, the whole pettiness behind that, because as you get momentum, your why changes. But as long as you get the momentum, because people think that I just got to find motivation. People think motivation is the cat you call that runs to you when you stick your head out the door and say, hey, food time. Nope. Motivation is so elusive. So you have to create momentum. And sometimes momentum is created by something petty, embarrassing, or just a bit dubious. But who cares? As long as it gets you doing the work.
Yeah, interesting. You could think about this podcast that I started over a decade ago now as a dubious life goal. I started it because I thought, this is kind of cool. My ego sort of said I could be a podcaster and I could make money off it.
Yeah.
That all changed very quickly, within a year.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this podcast for over a decade now because I enjoy it. And the fundamental changes it made in me is what happens through that momentum. Everything else that I started for is forgotten. I don't even care about it. So that's kind of like that sort of goal. But I feel like there's probably a lot of people listening to this going, okay, well, I like this idea and I definitely like it. People have things that they want to do in life, but they're stuck. They're not doing them. They're held back. And, they might have a nice dream, a vision, a why about really what they want to achieve that's really aligned internally with them, yet still they can't start. They can't find the momentum. What can we do?
What can we do? In this case, two ways of thinking about this. Probably you've got to work on both, but let's see what's the most important here. One is permission to do something, but I think two is actually fundamentally more important. Two is the logistics behind that. It's practical and emotional logistics. So what I mean here is what really stands in the way besides giving yourself permission. So is your life so clogged up? Is your head, is your mental energy and your physical energy so incinerated every day? Are you running on empty? If you run on empty, how on earth are you going to fulfill this massive, beautiful goal that's been, whispering inside you since probably you were a kid? No, because this is something very, very sacred and something that deserves your love, your attention, and your devotion. But if you only have scraps to give it, you're never going to start. So this is what I mean, when I talk about how sometimes our lives are very messy. Sometimes there's a lot of things incinerating our energy. So physical energy and mental energy, let's talk about the difference between that. So physical energy is my ability to do things because my body has got the charge to do physical actions. And sometimes that if I take a walk, I'm going to feel better, and then I'm going to lift my weights, right? If I take a walk or if I take the stairs, I'm going to feel really good, and then I might go and do the gym and stationary bike. That creates its own momentum. But there are times, like for instance, in the past 2 years when I had a big family crisis and then uncertainty from that crisis to deal with, because it's health of somebody you love and it's not within your own control, right? So I found myself able to bike in the gym for the first time in my life, but I had no mental energy to write a document to develop my business. So while I was still seeing my clients, I was taking care of my clients. I was writing articles for different publications. I was working in the media. I was not able to develop the business in a way that makes me excited and in a way that takes me into the future. And that's because mental energy is very different from physical energy. And yeah, I was grateful I had physical energy. But mental energy has got to do with your motivation, your momentum, your mental fuel to be able to do something, your mood, your strength in terms of the way you think when it comes to a certain task. So most people are not aware that there's a difference between mental and physical energy. And when we are not aware, we can blame ourselves and get really pissed off. Like, yeah, I could run. Why is it that I cannot work? Am I being lazy? So ask yourself, what in your life is chewing up your mental energy? What in your life is chewing up your physical energy? What steps do I need to get in place as step 0 before I can start working on that dream, on that goal? So especially if you have a brain that currently is feeling overwhelmed from not being able to feel. Okay, I know that sounds like an irony, but if you can't feel because you're depressed, or you're feeling too much because it's a dark night of the soul, or you're oscillating between both of them, that is a lot to deal with. That's going to be chewing up your mental energy. So if you ask yourself, what is the step 0 I need to get in place? So I'm going to give you an example again from sculpting bodies, because that's from discipline from health, because that's something most people relate to, taking care of their bodies, right? So before I could start exercising, I knew that my step 0 was actually removing makeup from my face. And it sounds crazy, right? But I've ADHD. So the stupidest, smallest task is what brings my brain to meltdown. So, I have to remove makeup. I'm not going to do that. But if I don't remove makeup, I'm going to get acne because I'm got acne-prone skin. So what did I do first? I went to the doctor and a facialist, and I said, take care of my skin so I never have to wear foundation or any kind of coverage on my skin ever again. Sorted that out, then I started exercise.
Right.
So ask yourself, what is the equivalent of the thing that is stopping you from actually embarking on that? Maybe your life is kind of messy. Maybe you're saying yes to everybody, even though you really want to say no. Or maybe you're saying yes, you're checking with XYZ because you think you have to be nice, because you think it's only 5 minutes, but 5 minutes and resentment compounds. Or, maybe you're just doing way too much. You're over-functioning. And while that's something that you're used to, doesn't mean you have to carry that for the rest of your life, because we evolve, our old selves shed and die.
It all starts with a decision. As Chantal Gerardi explains, it begins by looking at where you are and deciding who you want to become.
If you were talking to someone else, knowing what you know now about health and fitness, and they're sitting there struggling with their health issues in whatever capacity that might be, what advice would you give them to try and make that change, to motivate them to?
I think you really have to work out how you got there. I think sort of looking back a little and going, how did I get here? But then cut it. Like, I think a lot of people dwell on that, where they go, how did I get here? And then they start beating themselves up. It's like, how did I get here? Well, yeah, I was making all these bad decisions, doing all these bad things, plus, a bit of depression, not knowing who I am. But then the other part of that is looking and going, what is the type of person you want to be? And then creating that, what do I need to have in order to be that person?
Yeah.
Well, increase my water. I've got to, the basics. It's just the basics. It's your water. It's your sleep. It's keep moving. I mean, it's not rocket science. But I always say, find something you enjoy doing. Like a girlfriend of mine last week was saying,
that's good advice.
Down and she's very miserable, and she goes to the gym about 5 times a week. But she said going to the gym is actually getting to a point now where she's miserable going to the gym. She's not looking forward to it. And the other day I said to her, well, join my gym. They've got dance classes. And she was like, frick, that'll be amazing. Like, I can't wait. I'll look forward to going to dance classes. And I'm like, well, that's great. So you don't have to do 1,000 burpees. You don't have to do a spin class. You can do whatever movement is going to make you happy.
Yeah.
And dancing is a great one, honestly. Like, it's great.
And throughout it all, Stacey Curry lived by one powerful mantra that you can apply right now.
So have you found through speaking and telling your story those like acting greater than how you feel? Like, tell us about that. Like, is that a discovery you came across by speaking and presenting and sharing your story?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean,
because that's a really good tool. Like, it sounds so basic, doesn't it? Acting greater than how you feel, but what is that?
Absolutely. Well, and I say it when I was homeless, sleeping on the floor. Like, I never felt good enough at that time. I never felt worthy of. I had the shittest clothes. I had nothing, but I didn't wake up and go, oh, I'm so poor. I didn't even know, but I didn't know to go, so I had to knock on a door, even waking up on that morning thinking, fuck, I just don't know what to do with my life. I'm just going to have to go and knock on a door. And I look at a lot of people in this day and age that have got everything. They've got a house, they've got a beautiful partner, they've got kids, they've got the car, yet they won't pick up the phone and ring and make sales. They don't want to knock on a door because they don't feel ready. They don't feel like they're worthy enough, They don't feel smart enough. And so that's where I got it from that. And so even the stages, like when I was first asked to speak, one of my very first gigs was at an Endota conference, and I was paid like $200, and I just turned up, had never practiced, didn't know what I was talking about. I stood up and I couldn't speak. I just started crying, and the lady had to come and stand beside me, give me a chair, sit me down, and I still couldn't get it out. I look back at that now and I'm like, how freaking embarrassing. Like, they hired me as their speaker and I can't even speak. I got through it, but it was just so bad, so cringe. And then I was asked to speak at another PR event. That was one of my second, I think that was my second. Again, I had no practice, didn't know what I was doing. And I just kept failing and failing and failing until practice, and I just acted greater than how I was feeling, because I never felt, still to this day, when you saw me on stage, I don't feel that I'm worthy to be on those stages. Like, who am I? I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a bloody Olympic gold medalist. I'm just a little old me. I'm doing a gig to all these 200 members of Parliament at Parliament House in the next few weeks, like little old me,
Amazing. Acting greater than how you feel. Because there's, we can't have days where we just feel great and unstoppable. We often have days where you're feeling a bit down and shit and bad, sometimes weeks of it or months of it. But absolutely. The courage to actually step up even when you're feeling shit and do something about it is really what's important.
100%. I've got a son that's got battling mental illness, and I've had to get on stages knowing that when I get off, he could potentially not be here anymore. And I've just had to do it. I've had to get on with it. And some of the shit that I've been going through in the last 3 years is, if anyone's been through and is listening to this and they've had someone with addiction and mental illness issues, they would know the trauma, the terror and all of that you live with. And to have to get up every day and get on with it, it's a whole new level, but you just have to. Otherwise, what's the other alternative?
When we apply these tools, something beautiful begins to happen. The struggle loses its power over us, and we begin to find meaning within it. We transform. This is the ultimate goal, to make your past work for you, not against you. This journey leads you back to your most authentic self. If you're listening to this, you are already being called to do this work. You are being called to become the alchemist of your own life. To take your challenges, your struggles, and your pain, and transmute them into resilience, wisdom, and unshakable purpose. Remember the lessons from our guests. Quiet the inner critic. Use your emotions as data. Act greater than you feel. Prioritize recovery. Find your why, no matter how dubious. And trust that your story has the power to not only free you, but to inspire others. Thank you for listening. Until next time, keep seeking your hidden why.